Hey y'all, in today's video, we're going to be doing some fall DIYs. We're going to be upcycling some stuff that I thrifted. We're going to be using some stuff from my backyard. And of course, we're going to try some things that I have never tried before and see how it comes out. I think in the end, y'all are going to love all of these upcycles. So let's go ahead and get started. For this project, we're going to be using these metal words from the Dollar Tree. I purchased it last year, so I'm not positive that they're in stock this year. I assumed it said grateful, thankful, blessed, but it actually says thankful, harvest, welcome, which I thought was kind of random. I painted it in a matte black spray paint. I painted both the front and the back, and then I went find a stick from my yard, and I'm going to cut it down to 12 inches. I'm going to be cutting 2 pieces of wood so I can try 2 different things with the fall words. Then you want to take one of your pieces of wood to your table saw. You want the blade to just be slightly up, maybe about 1/4 of an inch, because we just want to put a little score in our piece of wood. So you kind of want to figure out which side of your wood lays flat and then turn it over and score the other side. So you want the scored part that will be on the top piece of your wood. If you are not comfortable using power tools, I would not recommend doing this. I went find 2 smaller pieces of wood in my yard and I cut them down, and then I found a drill bit that was the same size as my 2 small pieces of wood. So I'm just going to drill 2 holes into my little log, and I'm going to use the word harvest on this one, so I'm just using it as a reference so I can see exactly where I need to place these pieces of wood to hold up the word harvest. To attach the smaller pieces of wood, I'm just going to use a little bit of hot glue and then a rubber mallet just to secure them into place. And then I'm going to hot glue the word harvest to the smaller pieces of wood that I attached to the bigger piece of wood. The next word, I want to glue it into that little slit that we made on the miter saw, but this F is in the way, it's coming down too much, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut off the part where it comes down. That way I have a straight line to be able to glue to my piece of wood, and then you're just going to simply take out your hot glue and glue it in all the places where the word hits the log. For less than $1, I think these turned out so cute. They make the most adorable shelf sitters, and I definitely think that I achieved my goal of making these Dollar Tree metal words look as expensive as possible. They would look great in anyone's fall decor. We're going to be transforming this white pumpkin that has seen better days. I don't even know where I got it from, but I've definitely been using it for years in my fall decor. And the great thing is, once you have a pumpkin, you have a pumpkin, and you can change it up each year to fit in what your current style is for fall. So what I want to do is I'm just going to take a pencil and I'm just going to hand draw some little vines and some little leaves all over this pumpkin. Next, I'm going to take my hot glue gun and just trace over all the little vines that I just made with my pencil. I kind of thought this would take a long time, but it really didn't. It actually took me longer to plan out and draw the little vines than it did to go back over it with the glue gun. Now you could fill in the leaves if you wanted. I just decided to stick with the outline, and it worked great. Even if my lines were a little bit shaky in the end, it all works out. We're definitely going for a handmade look, so don't stress over it too much. Next, we're going to paint it using the baking soda and paint mixture. I'm using the Waverly chalk paint in the color Mineral, and the recipe is up to you. It just depends how textured you want your paint to be. I would not recommend going more than half and half. The more baking soda you use, the more textured it will be. Now we're simply just going to paint the pumpkin with the mixture we just made. When I'm using the baking soda paint mixture, I like to use a chip brush just for even more added texture. And the great thing, since you can see the paint was chipping off of this pumpkin, doing this textured paint mixture will hide all those imperfections. So if you have something that has imperfections, this painting technique is definitely the way to go. You also want to take off all the little hot glue sprigs that you have everywhere. I thought I pulled them off, and then when I started painting, they just kept popping up some more. So you're going to want to put 2 coats of paint on here. You want to paint one, let it dry, and then go ahead and put the second coat of paint on. And once your paint is all the way dry, you want to seal it. I use Rust-Oleum Clear. And I would recommend doing 2 coats because I only did 1 light coat, and I still had areas where the paint was coming up where the hot glue was. So this will help keep your gray paint on the piece. And once that is dry, we want to add white wax. Y'all have seen me do this many times before. When you add white wax to gray, it makes it look like cement, and it's also really gonna bring out all that texture that we just put on this piece with the hot glue. So you simply paint on your white wax, and then you're gonna take a paper towel or a rag and just wipe it off. So this is why it is important to seal it before this step, because you don't want to wipe off your gray paint as well. I just love how this pumpkin came out. This is definitely my style of fall decor, and I chose this leaf pattern, but you can definitely use whatever pattern you want to update whatever size pumpkin you have to fit into your current fall decor style. I purchased these little glass jars from Hobby Lobby. I prefer to use thrifted items, but I wasn't able to find any in time to do this video, but they were half off, so I think they were like $1 or something. They were not expensive at all. You're gonna need some Mod Podge. I prefer the matte finished, and I thought I needed some food coloring and some water. As you will see, this turned into a hot mess. I saw this tutorial somewhere, I don't even remember where, and I wanted to try it. So I put some Mod Podge in my measuring cup. I put way too much, y'all. You do not need much for this project. And then I want to thin it down a little bit, so I'm adding water. And next I'm going to add my food coloring. Now, what I am trying to do here is to recreate amber glass jars using just thrifted glass that you find anywhere. That did not happen. I could not get the amber color. I used a mixture of the brown and a little bit of like an orangey color of the food coloring. And then as I started like adding more and not getting the color I wanted, I started thinking, why can't I just use paint for this? In the tutorial that I watched, they use food coloring, but I think that doesn't make sense. Like, I think it would have been easier just to pick out an amber color paint to add to this. So in the end, I started adding paint. I could not get the amber color that I wanted, but I just decided to go with it and see how it looked to color the inside of these jars. So let's just pretend you want to do any color here. So just mix whatever color you want with a little bit of Mod Podge and a little bit of water. Now in the end, I definitely liked how this came out, and I decided to try it with a gray. So I grabbed another glass jar I had and tried it in gray, and it was very light. So I mean, if that's the look you like, that works as well. But personally, I think it looks better using this technique in darker colors. And I definitely want to do some of these for Halloween, because I think it would be so cool to do this effect in black and red and add some cool labels on that. So I think we're going to do that on a future video. So when I finally gave up on getting the amber color, I just decided to go with this brown that I had recreated by mixing God knows how many colors. And what you want to do is just want to pour a little bit into your glass jar and start to turn it around. And you want to make sure the whole thing is covered, and then you just turn it upside down and let it drain. I definitely want y'all to learn from my mistakes. So I'm gonna show y'all, I just used the tiniest bit of this. It did not take much at all. And you see the mess I have going on here, and then I have them drying right here. It's only been a few minutes, but I am kind of digging this. So we will see how this turns out. Once they had drained for a little while, I just turned them over onto a flat piece of aluminum foil and let them dry for 24 hours upside down, and just moved them every couple of hours so that way they weren't sitting in the Mod Podge. After they dried upside down for 24 hours, I turned them right side up and let them dry again for another 24 hours. Even though I didn't achieve the amber glass jar effect I was going for, honestly, I would just go out and buy amber glass jars if that's what I wanted. I absolutely love how this looks. So you see the difference between the darker color and then the lighter gray is very pretty, but I personally love the darker one. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this. Have y'all done this before? Do y'all have any tips for me? My husband actually found this in the backyard, and we do not throw away rusty, awesome stuff in this house. So I went ahead and sealed it with a few coats of the matte sealer just so that that rust doesn't transfer onto my walls. And I actually thrifted these cotton stems. So I'm going to use this and my favorite lamb's ear from Walmart to add a little bit of floral to this pitchfork. I ended up using 2 stems of cotton and 2 stems of lamb's ear, and I'm just going to tie them together using jute rope, and then I'm going to cut off the excess stem that I don't need, and then I'm going to attach it to my pitchfork. I'm just going to tie it that way if I want to change it up for the seasons I can remove it, and then I'm just going to tie an extra little loop at the top to be able to hang it onto the wall. I'm also going to add this cute little bow. I always pick these up after Christmas at Walmart. They do have a little gold tie on them, but what I do is I just remove that and then add a little bit of twine to make it a more rustic look instead of that bright gold that comes on the Christmas bow. I think this is a more fall look just with the pitchfork, but you could definitely leave this out year round. And it is harder than you think to come by this sort of stuff because most people just throw it away. But I also think this looks great if you find some little rusty garden tools. This looks so cute just hanging on a hook. Do y'all remember this sign that I thrifted a few weeks ago? We're going to transform it to some fall wall decor using IOD molds. So the first thing I want to do is paint it white. I am just going to be using this flat ready to use paint from Walmart. I'm going to put 2 coats of paint on this piece. Then I'm going to distress it using my orbital sander and 220 grit sandpaper. I like to hit the edges a little bit harder and then just slightly distress the rest of the piece. Now, when you're upcycling wall art that has already been put together, make sure you're doing it the right way according to where the hanger is attached to the back. So always check that before you get started. I have learned that from experience. So what I did was I just printed out an image of a pumpkin on my computer. You can freehand it if you want, but you just need a simple outline of a pumpkin. I'm going to be using the IOD trimming modes 2 on this piece. The cool thing about this is the edges fit together. So if you want to make a longer piece out of this trim mode, you'll have a seamless look. Now, we're going to be using IOD air dry clay, and we don't want our clay sticking to our mold, so you just want to put something in there. Cornstarch will work fine. I didn't have any cornstarch on hand, so I'm using flour, and I found that also works good. And I just like to use a brush to brush it on. And then you're going to go ahead and put your air dry clay into your molds. The IOD molds come with this micro rim on the edges, so that makes it really easy to get the excess clay off. I just usually push down with my finger and slide it down, and all that excess clay just comes right off. And then to get the clay out of the mold, I just kind of bend the mold back and forth to loosen it up, and then it usually just pops right out, and you're ready to use these pieces on your artwork. Now we're going to fill in our pumpkin outline with the trimming molds that we just created. So I'm just kind of figuring out which trim I want to place where, putting it on my pumpkin outline, and then cutting off the excess using that outline that I made of the pumpkin. It is simply that easy. And once you kind of have everything figured out where you want it to go, then you're going to take some Gorilla Glue or whatever kind of glue you want to use and glue them down. I do this while my clay is still wet and have not had any issues with it sticking to my pieces. Once the clay had dried on my piece for 24 hours, I decided to go over it with some white wax. I am definitely going for a more muted look here, but you could definitely add color to this piece. I went over it with the white wax because I wanted all the cracks where the wood was showing through and all the clay to be the same color. Your clay also will crack a little bit while it's drying, and this helps just kind of camouflage some of those cracks. You could use paint on this step as well. I did end up wiping back the white wax as you are supposed to do because I wanted there to be lots of different tones of white. I did want it to be all white, but I still wanted a lot of that texture to go through. So even though you're doing white, you can have different variations of white and it makes for a very pretty look. So this is just personal preference, however you want your pumpkin to look. I felt like the pumpkin needed to be outlined, so I'm just using this braided jute rope that I had, and I'm just going to take hot glue and I'm going to outline the entire pumpkin with this. Now we need to add a stem and some greenery. So once again, I just went out in my yard and picked out a piece of wood that would look perfect with the shape and size of this pumpkin, and then I used my jigsaw just to cut it to the size I needed. And I just took out 2 little leaves of lamb's ear from Walmart, and I'm going to add it to this pumpkin, and then this piece will be done. This piece is all about the texture, so I used the IOD molds, but you could definitely use spackle or caulk or something to create texture in the pumpkin shape. I know this look isn't for everybody, but as you can tell, I love a more muted palette for fall. So let me know what y'all think. Are y'all the same way, or do you like the bright oranges that you normally see in fall decor? Alright guys, what did y'all think about the projects that I created today? Please leave a comment below and let me know what was your favorite. And I hope this has inspired y'all to start doing y'all DIY fall decor. And hopefully that brings on some cooler weather, because I don't know about where y'all at, but where I'm at, it is super hot. I am ready for some fall weather. If these are the kind of videos you love, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I do these types of thrift, flip, upcycles every single week. Y'all have a great day, and I will see y'all in the next video.